The digital clock on my truck's dashboard glowed to 14 a.m. I was driving down a completely pitch-black stretch of Interstate 80, cutting through the dense valleys of Pennsylvania. The fog was so thick that my high beams could barely cut through the white haze. It was the kind of isolation that makes your mind play tricks on you. The radio had faded into static miles ago, leaving only the loud, rhythmic rumble of my diesel engine to keep me awake. That was when my headlights caught a shape standing on the gravel shoulder of the highway. As the truck drew closer, the shape resolved into a person. It was a tall, thin man wearing a heavy, dark trench coat. His head was bowed down, his face completely hidden by the shadow of a wide-brimmed hat. He stood perfectly still in the freezing fog, holding his right thumb out into the road. Normally, I never pick up hitchhikers. It is too dangerous on these lonely roads. But the temperature outside was dropping below freezing, and there wasn't a gas station for another 50 miles. I felt a sudden wave of pity. I tapped my brakes, slowing the massive truck down, and pulled over to the side of the road. The air brakes hissed loudly as the truck came to a complete stop. I leaned over and unlocked the passenger door. The door swung open, and the freezing night air rushed into the warm cabin. The man climbed up the metal steps slowly, his movements incredibly stiff, almost like a machine. He pulled himself into the passenger seat and shut the door with a heavy thud. The moment he sat down, a terrible odor filled the inside of my truck. It smelled like stagnant swamp water and old, rotting leather. I looked over at him to say hello. He kept his head tilted down toward his lap. I couldn't see his face at all, just a pale, sharp chin sticking out from beneath the rim of his hat. His dark trench coat was dripping wet, soaking into the fabric of my passenger seat. Even though it hadn't rained all night, I shifted the truck back into gear and started driving again. I tried to clear the awkward silence by asking where he was heading. The man didn't answer. He didn't even move. He just sat there, staring down at his own hands resting on his lap. I noticed his fingers then. They were completely white, bloodless, and wrinkled, as if they had been submerged under water for days. I chuckled nervously, turning my eyes back to the foggy road ahead, deciding to leave him alone. Some people just want a ride, not a conversation. 20 minutes passed in total, suffocating silence. The heavy smell in the cabin was getting worse, making my stomach turn. I decided to roll down my side window a fraction of an inch to let some fresh air in. As I did, the cold wind caused the man's wide-brimmed hat to shift slightly. I glanced sideways for just a fraction of a second, and my breath caught in my throat. The flashlight from my dashboard illuminated the side of his face. There was no skin on his cheek. It was a sickening, dark gray texture, peeling away like wet paper, but worse than that. He didn't have eyes. Where his eyes should have been, there were just hollow, empty sockets filled with thick, black mud that was slowly dripping down his face. My heart hammered violently against my ribs. Total panic gripped my chest. I stared straight ahead at the road, my hands shaking so hard on the steering wheel that the truck began to sway. I needed to get him out of my truck. I needed to stop at the next exit and run. Suddenly, a cold, wet hand gripped my right shoulder. The touch was freezing, like ice pressing directly onto my skin through my jacket. I let out a choked gasp, paralyzed with fear. I slowly turned my head to look at him. The creature was leaning toward me now. The head had fallen off completely, its mouth split open, stretching wider than any human mouth ever could, revealing rows of small, needle-sharp black teeth. It didn't speak. Instead, a loud, high-pitched screeching sound emitted from its throat, sounding like metal tearing apart. I slammed my foot onto the brake pedal with all my strength. The massive truck skidded violently across the empty highway, the tires screaming against the asphalt. The sudden force threw the creature forward. its head smashing hard against the glass of the windshield. The glass shattered into a spiderweb pattern. Without wasting a single second, I unbuckled my seat belt, threw my door open, and leapt out of the moving truck, crashing hard onto the cold gravel of the highway. I rolled into the grass, my body bruised and bleeding, but the adrenaline kept me moving. I scrambled to my feet and sprinted blindly into the thick fog. Away from the truck, I hid behind a large concrete barrier in the median. Staring through the haze at my idling truck dot in the dim light of the cabin, I saw the passenger door fly open. The creature climbed out. It didn't walk. It began to bend backward at an impossible angle, dropping its hands to the ground, and sprinted into the dark woods on all fours, vanishing into the trees in a matter of seconds. I waited in the freezing fog for nearly an hour until another truck driver spotted my hazard lights and stopped to help. The state police found my truck abandoned on the shoulder. Inside the cabin, the passenger seat was completely soaked with a foul-smelling black sludge. They never found the man in the trench coat. Now, I never drive at night, because every time the fog rolls in, I can still smell that rotting swamp water. And I know he is still out there on Interstate 80, waiting for the next truck to stop.